if you wanted to just talk about a little bit, like what it's been like since the whole, coronavirus came about, what you've had to kind of change. I mean, I know obviously people are working a lot more from home, but just as far as your job goes, what, I'm sure you've had to get more creative and, just
Yep.
what that's been like for you. I'd love to hear about that.
Well, definitely, since obviously you heard from the beginning that I have not figured out Zoom, creating it myself. But what I had to figure out was, how do I record these interviews? So I actually use FaceTime, and I can just put their phone number in, and then I use QuickTime to record them. That has worked out for me, except one time Bo Nix was talking, from the quarterback for Auburn. And
Yeah.
they actually set up a Zoom call. And I was like, okay, this is great. I can record the Zoom call, which was, oh, it was awful, because where I'm in Columbus, Georgia. We are right on the border of Eastern Central Time. And so Auburn is in Central Time, and some of Alabama, it's not actually the Chattahoochee River border. Like, some of Alabama is in Eastern Time, just because they are so close to Columbus, Georgia, that, like, why would they want their work schedule to be different than their living schedule? So anyway, long story
Sure.
short, though, Auburn is Central Time. So they scheduled their interview at 3 Central, which is 4 Eastern for me. 40-minute interview. And so they said, well, you can't record the Zoom call. We'll post it in our little file, our FTP site later. And I'm thinking, I'm trying to get this on for 6 o'clock. I mean, and this interview went 40 minutes. It's already 4:40. That gives me an hour 20. And I'm trying to turn this into a little story. So I recorded it with QuickTime, but during one of the bites where one of the guys was talking about lifting, my dog barked. I was like, God dang it. If I could have
Oh,
recorded the Zoom, I would have been on mute. But because I
yeah.
was recording QuickTime, if she barks, if something weird happens, like of all times, my cable box went out during COVID-19. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I had the interview with that Alabama kid the athlete. And I was like, when are y'all coming in? He's like, we're coming between 8 and 1. I was like, okay, great. Well, I didn't know they'd come at 1. So I scheduled the interview at 1 and thinking, so I had to take it in there. And he worked. Long story
Oh
short,
my God.
that's the tough part. But also too, I would say that what's been tough for us is, I'm not the sports director. I'm the second sports anchor. And well, one thing that's weird about our station, we're really odd. We don't have weekend shows. We only do weekend if we go to football games and stuff like that. But it doesn't air till Monday. And we don't do highlights. We do more recap, or we get that footage. So that way when it is NFL draft, I have 2 a video, we're fine. But so anyway, how it's been working is I anchor sports Thursday, Friday, and my coworker anchors Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If stories change, if I have my interviewee, especially with COVID, everybody's not available on the right days anymore. Everybody's even though you're not as busy, you're still busier. And
Right.
so sometimes we'll change it up, but for the most part, that's how we've been doing it. My setup, I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna have to pick this thing up.
Yeah.
But there's a jersey
Oh, I love it.
and that
Love
little
it.
corner.
Yeah.
I got a
Yeah.
Columbus hockey jersey, so
Yeah.
I had to be careful because I have a lot of Texas stuff, so I didn't want to show that.
Hey, that's awesome. I saw the horns on the wall. I'm all about it. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, I guess that is what, I've seen other, TV people and especially sports, just having to get creative, doing over the shoulder of them doing a Zoom call and cause here I'm just getting out of college and I'm like, oh, I'll just, do this Zoom and cut it up. And there we go for my project. But
Oh yeah.
obviously for Jeff, we'll talk about for the TV audience, you want to make it as kind of creative and, and all that. But I think, so is that something that have you even been able to get out in the community and physically interview
I
athletes?
have.
Okay.
We had an athlete, and it was so interesting to shoot. We had 3 athletes. One is in California right now, so I had to FaceTime him, that were in the NFL draft. Well, you can't go to high school fields. Well, you can if you know the right people. So 2
Right.
of the guys, one is from Columbus, one is from Harris County. They were both training, and actually we have 3 stations in town. Only 2 of us did a preview in person and did it after. And I think it looked better than the phoner. They didn't, and I'm surprised they didn't do a FaceTime phoner. They just did the little picture. Now that I know how to FaceTime, I'm going to try to get over the stupid photo. But anyway, so we both went and interviewed those 2 athletes that were in the draft. And it was funny because the kid that went to Columbus, it was at Harris County. They were like, can you try not to get any of the logo? And I'm like, it's at the 50-yard line. It's on your water tower. It's on your scoreboard. Like, how am I supposed to shoot this? Like, I had some really good shots that I didn't use because it really showed it. I mean, if you saw it for a split second, I said, screw it. Otherwise, I'm going to have no shots. But so that's how we did that. And so that was great. And then this past, right after the draft, things were starting to loosen up with COVID. So, especially in Georgia, I'm in a state where like it's really kind of opening up, where the guinea pigs. But so I met with those guys again because one of the guys did not get drafted. He was projected 5th, 6th round. He was a cornerback, but he got signed undrafted by the Broncos. So I interviewed him. And then the other guy that was from the Harris County that I could get those shots from, he actually was Mr. Irrelevant. So I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, I was like, oh, Tay Crowder from Georgia, here we go. So I've gone out and done stuff like that. What's been a buzzkill is I've probably gone out more lately to do news. And I'm not going to lie, like, I'm not saying news is bad. If you like to be a news reporter, that's all you. But if you're itching to be a sports reporter, like, I don't know. I told my mom, I said, I wouldn't hate being a news reporter, but I said that now I know what it feels like to not love my job.
Yeah.
I would rather be a news reporter than, sit at a desk all day in a courthouse or something and be a secretary. But at the same time, it's when you found something you love, it's just really hard. And I'm not even doing murders or anything. I'm just doing like today we've been doing daily phone calls at 11, and not everybody on the team has been participating, but I've done it if I can because I like these things. And today I said, hey, they said, hey, Larissa, are you helping news today? Or is it Scott? I said, me. And they said, well, what do you got? I said, I've got nothing. What do you got? Like, I'm running out of stuff. Like and the thing about sports too is like we've got our sports connections. So I'll tell you a way I have been creative with sports in a second, but it's like with news, we don't have those connections. So I've been building relationships with like some of the community or with the hospitals. And so like today, it was awful. Today was a rough day but I tried to pull together a thank you to our nurses for National Nurses Day. I told my coworker, because I'm not 100% today, I can tell I'm a little off, probably just drained. I said, can I just do a story where it's just all of them and I don't track it at all? That's literally what I did. I just let the nurses do the talking. I was the sandwich on the outside, and that's what I did. I haven't done that ever. And I was just like, I'm just going to do it today. I really don't care. It's one of those days.
That's sometimes, and that's like, probably as best as anyone, like that's the best thing to do is just give the microphone to, the other person, let them kind of tell the story. It's like if I was pulled up to the scene and I'm like, man, I don't really know, like, or, you're talking to a scientist, you're like, well, let me, get my voice out of here and like, let him just, explain this whole deal. But
exactly.
So I guess it works out, it's like.
Here was the funny part though. So one hospital said that I couldn't meet anyone in person today. One because one guy was busy and the other nurses are pretty busy. Mm-hmm. Well, then the other hospital, it took a lot of strings, but at 2:30, she said I was able to get an in-person interview with one of their nurses. So one hospital had 1, the other hospital had 3, but the 3 were all not in person. So what I had to do was, so the 2:30 one I got in person, it ran a little bit long because I had to do my stand-ups. Well, we have this Bluetooth setup, so based on a wireless mic versus a stick mic, I'm supposed to adjust something. Like I said, I'm not feeling 100%, so I forgot to adjust it, so my stand-ups were over-modulated. I'm like, well, crap, whatever, it's going to work. And anyway, it all worked out, but the long story short, to give you an idea of what you have to deal with this COVID stuff. So the hospital that didn't let me do the in-person interviews, they were like, I don't know if we can get you a nurse today. I was like, look. I said, can you just get your phone, please? Like I said it nicely, but I was like, would you be able to get your phone, put it horizontal, and just ask the nurses why they love their job? That's all I need. Yeah. And so literally those 2 nurse interviews are her phone. And I'm just like, I'll bump up the audio. They're like, that's something. And then I had an interview with the chief nursing officer of that hospital at 3:15. Well, the 2:30 thing was going a little bit longer than I thought, like getting my B-roll and stuff. So it was 3:15, and I was in the car. I was still 10 minutes from my house, and they said, oh, are you ready? Like, we can do it now. And I'm like, oh, crap, how do I do this? So, how your phone can record, your screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't record audio, though.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, crap. So what I did, I was innovative. I got my wireless mic, put it up to the phone, held the phone FaceTime, and recorded the audio with my camera, and then matched it later.
There you
It
go.
was, and I was in the car and I had the car off. I was sweating because I said I didn't want any other noise. It was rough. It was rough, but that gives you an idea. But for sports where I've had to be creative is I told one guy, I said, hey, look, I don't mean to be rude, but I said, your story would not be something I'd be covering on a normal basis. But because we are looking for something, it is a great story. Like this one guy, my reporting coworker, she said, hey, this lady on Facebook was like mad that she couldn't see her patients or her relative that was in the hospital. Can you find him and maybe do a story on it? And I'm thinking, I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with something like that. So I Google St. Francis Hospital and I just see what comes up. And this is buff guy in a hospital outfit. And he said, I played 8 years in the minors. I'm like, that guy. Boom. I'm going to do a story on him. And he's actually going to become a physician assistant in December. So I did his interview where he played high school baseball, got his cards. Like I did that in person, but I had him shoot me some stuff. So that's how I've been getting creative. And that interview, I told his head coach about it back in the day, his head coach. And he said, oh, if you're looking for another story, this guy that used to play for us was playing baseball in Taiwan. I was like, oh, so, they were the only league that was playing up till yesterday when Korea started. So I said, oh, that would be great. So I did a FaceTime with him, which had to be through Facebook because I couldn't get FaceTime. I didn't want it to charge me, him being in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And I had to do it in the morning because it was nighttime for him. And so I asked him about playing baseball in Taiwan, how they've been able to overcome it. And actually funny, Taiwan's only had 6 deaths and the county I'm in has had 7. So I was like, it was just cool kind of tying it into perspective. But yet what made it even better is I knew he was a Central Red Devil, like high school baseball player back in the day. But I didn't realize until I looked up his name that he played baseball at Auburn. So then that made it a little bit more exciting. And then I know like another station in Alabama said, hey, it was a good story. You think, can I like take a shot from that? I'm like, yeah, sure. I don't care.
Like perfect. Yeah.
No. And I was like, that guy was cool. So, I mean, and that's just kind of how this time is. We're so helpful. But it was a little bit long story, but I really liked that Taiwan story. I actually was sitting on it for 2 weeks. And then I decided to run it this past Friday, which was great because I didn't know the Korea baseball organization was going to start theirs this week. So it kind of worked out great. And so just trying to come up with little stories like that. It's really a great time to kind of feature. It's a great feature time featuring like those former players that have been in your area. Like we have a running back, J.D. McKissick. He played for the Lions. I think he played for the Seahawks. Oh, yeah. He's on the Redskins this year. Yeah. Well, so I didn't know he was from here because I got here in September. So I'm like learning all of this as I go. It's all luck of the draw if I hear about it. And so, I'm going to try to get an interview with him. He said he'd be down. He's just training in town. Like, so I want to ask him like, hey, you're going to start with a new team now. Like, what have you been able to study with the books? And like, I know where he works out at. So it's just little stuff like that to see what you can get. Heck, one high school team for football, because of COVID, it took them forever to get their state championship ring. Oh, they just got it yesterday. So I was like, yes, sports, let's go. It's just them getting their rings and picking it up. But I was like, hey, that works out.
Gosh. Oh, no, it's crazy. It's like impacted everyone. It's kind of like you run into people every day and you're like, oh, man, like, our classes are online and they're like, oh, a friend of ours had the virus or this. Everybody's been like affected in some way. And it's just crazy. It's like, obviously, because it's such a like worldwide, phenomenon. But have you done more like, I know I was talking to Mark yesterday, they've done more like senior profiles and like on athletes that are, graduating right now, like in the area. Have y'all done stuff like that in Columbus?
Well, so we saw that and we were like, well, we want to be one of those that doesn't do that, because I don't know, like we weren't feeling it. And then one of the other stations decided to do it anyway. So we've just been more trying to stay away, I guess, from that. Cause I'm like, there's not much it's a good idea, it really is. But like, we do have a lot of talent that's been here. And so I think we're trying to find more those unique kind of stories. Like I know Auburn University, at one point my coworker did a story. Their football athletic, what do you want to call them? The people who put like the helmets and the gear together.
Oh yeah, the equipment.
They sewed PPE masks for local hospitals. So he did a story on that. So we're trying to find more of those feature unique stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to bash on the senior stuff, but
Yeah.
like when I did senior, it was more like that kid going to Bama. Or now I did do the day that, so it's kind of interesting because we cover Georgia and Alabama. I did a story with a lot of seniors on the day that Georgia decided not to cancel the sports season, and I did a story on Alabama canceling the sports season. I did a lot of FaceTimes for that. I picked like one coach for both stories, and then I grabbed like 3 seniors.
Oh, cool.
I tried to pick like different sports. Like I remember in Alabama, I had one guy who was a high jumper. He was hoping to get another state title. I had a softball player and a baseball player. So I tried to really mix it up. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
I just figured, why not do it that way? But somehow we've been able to fill a show. And what really helped was the draft. Again, I'm in a lucky area because we get to cover Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia. So there's just so many players that we got to use some time on. Talking about Tua forever, Jake Fromm, just sitting. They kept showing him waiting to be drafted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So just fun stuff like that.
No, I was going to say, because you are in the heart of SEC country, so it's really like a breeding ground, of talent. But have y'all, so on your shows at night lately, have y'all had to do like focus like or incorporate, I guess, more national sports stories or just like different like segments, like using more like social media stuff or than like you normally would because there just hadn't been fresh sports content?
Well, you know what? I guess we've done national when it comes to like Olympics. We're an NBC station. So like when the Olympics said they were postponing, we kind of did that kind of national angle, or whenever the NFL said the international, but we always find a way to tie it though. Cause like when the NFL decided to cancel international games, the Falcons had a game in London. So we were like, oh, by the way, the Falcons, that. Totally. And then Olympics, I found out there was a local guy that was training to do high jump. So the next day I found him and I said, hey, let's do a feature on you, how this kind of messes up your training for a whole nother year now. Yeah. So like we've been like, when it comes to national, it's just like the big stuff, or like golf, we'll talk about the golf, or like NASCAR. But again, like SEC country, it's kind of a hotbed for NASCAR and golf where I'm at, so it's like, even though it's national, you can kind of relate it a little bit. You can't always find a local person to talk about it, but like with golf, since we're NBC and not CBS, that's been a little bit harder. We just kind of keep it more generic for golf. But when it was NASCAR's been good. NASCAR's been sending us stuff. So, I get highlight B-roll footage of their little iRacing.
Have there been things y'all have implemented now, like as far as putting together stories and stuff or doing interviews that you're like, hey, we should try this more, experiment with this more in the future? Has there been anything like that?
Probably not really too much. I would just say, like kind of what I was saying earlier, I kind of like doing these FaceTimes and these Zooms over doing a phone call and throwing up their picture. I think having a video, even if it's not 100% clear, is way better than having that picture if they're willing to do it. I know that's one thing we talked about that we liked, but other than that, we're just itching to get back in that newsroom. It's because we were talking about, it's actually so much more work putting together the sports show because we're at the point now, the NFL draft, we went live in studio. Okay. But like other than that, we've been at home, and it's like it's so much more work putting it together, because what you would have said on camera live, you're having to track it, you're having to do multiple tracks just to make sure nothing cut out or you said it right or whatever. Yeah. And it takes so much longer to put all that on. It's unreal. So we're looking forward to less work on that end. Because that's what I think some people think, oh, you're at home, it's probably a way easier gig. Nope. You're still going out and shooting the stuff. Right. Or even if you're cutting like one of these, it still is a lot of work, and like just trying to find B-roll that you can use and stuff. Like for the Taiwan baseball game, I was like, I wonder if I can use this game footage. Because, like we can't use SEC footage. Like even if we shot it ourselves, our station isn't allowed to use SEC because we're a family-owned station, and they can't afford to buy the rights to SEC footage. Big 12's different. You can put that stuff on Twitter, but like our station, we're not allowed then to put on, the web footage we shot. I could have shot the best catch ever, and everybody else missed it, but I can't post it.
Oh wow!
So we only can post like warm-up stuff and stuff like that. But anyway, other than that, it's just like, I would probably say just this FaceTime thing. That's the only thing I really have liked versus a phoner, because I just hate phoners. You have to get their little picture, and then they don't like their picture, and then, or,
Right.
there'll be a picture of them and their family, and, they look so small in it, and you can't even see them.